Welcome to Dysfunctionally Yours, the podcast where we embrace the chaos, laugh through the struggles, and find hope on the other side of trauma. I'm your host, Brittany, and if you've ever felt like your life was a beautifully messy roller coaster of dysfunction, trust me, you're in good company. Here, we'll have real, raw, and sometimes ridiculous conversations about mental health, relationships, and healing, because let's be honest, life isn't always pretty, but that doesn't mean we can't come out of it stronger and maybe even smiling. So grab a cup of coffee or a glass of bubbles, and let's navigate this wild journey together, dysfunctionally, but never alone.
Welcome back, friends, to another episode of Dysfunctionally Yours. I am your host, Brittany, and I am so excited about this particular episode. This is a very special episode, very near and dear to me, and I have been waiting since the start of the podcast to have this episode. So I'm super excited. But before we get into that, I figured I would do a little ache and relief, not to stray too far off the beaten path from our normal routine. My ache of the week is I swear the ADHD is in fact running my life right now. The closet monster progressively getting worse, although I did work on it for like 20 minutes other day ago and made some progress, but now I'm looking at it again like, yikes, how do I do that again? I don't know. I also realized that on the weekends I have less caffeine, and when I have less caffeine, I have a harder time focusing. I drink lots of caffeine at work to focus. I don't whenever I'm at home. So, maybe I just need to drink a Red Bull and knock it out. Who's to say? I don't know, but it is really kind of annoying me. Can anybody relate? I can't be the only one that has this problem. I just can't. And if I am, send help. Kidding. Not really. No, I'm not. I'm not kidding at all. I'm not. My relief of the week is that I, for the past few weeks, haven't really been feeling myself for various different reasons, but just like not feeling myself. Been much more emotional and just a lot of big feels leading to a lot more exhaustion, and I just really have not been feeling myself. And then this past week I woke up, went back to work. I was driving into work after the long weekend and I was like, there she is. I found her again. And I just could feel that it was different for me. Like I could just feel that I was more myself than I had been. And that carried through for the whole week. And I was like, thank God. Like, Brittany, girl, I was beginning to miss you. Like, I don't know what was happening, but thanks for showing back up. So not all days are great days. I mean, they weren't necessarily bad days. They just were, I don't know. I just was not myself. What's that Christina Aguilera song? There's a Christina Aguilera song. Not myself tonight. Oh God, I need it in my brain. Well, it's gone. Moment's gone. So that's my ache of the week, or that's my relief of the week. It's very early. I haven't finished this coffee. My brain is a little squirrely. All right. So, like I said, this is a very special episode to me, and I speak about it every year. But obviously, last year I didn't have the podcast to speak about it on. And so now I will. I'm just really excited to share all of this. So, we've talked a lot in previous episodes about suicide attempts and whatnot. But 20 years ago, this June 7th, so a couple days, June 7th will be my 20-year anniversary from the last time that I tried to end my life. So today I celebrate the fact that I didn't succeed in that attempt or any of the others, right? But that I didn't succeed in that attempt. And it isn't just an anniversary, but it's like a full-bodied reminder of what choosing life can be when those are the choices that you start to make, even when it's hard, because it's not always been easy. 20 years is a long time. I was thinking about that. I was like, 20 years, that's a childhood. That's coming into adulthood. Like, more children could have been born and headed off to college in that amount of time. And that's such a long time that whenever I was in the thick of that, there was no way I could have seen my life 20 years forward. 20 years to the future. And I look at it now and I choose to celebrate all of this because I'm like, I've accomplished so much and I've seen so many things and I've experienced so much beautiful, beautiful life since then in 20 years. And I'm like, gosh, what a journey that I really never thought that I would be on. And how fucking cool is that? Like, that is just, it's enough to get me emotional. So I do want to acknowledge the weight of this particular topic. I know that people are in various stages of their life or maybe never have been in that particular like place in your life. And that's okay, right? Like if you've never experienced that, thank goodness. And if you have or are or will, I share this story as a celebration, not as, a memory. It's not a negative memory for me. I really, really appreciate looking back every year. And that's what I do on my anniversary. I celebrate myself. It is my favorite day of the year. And I celebrate myself and I'm loud and proud about it. I am excited. That particular day, June 7th, every year, whenever I wake up, I'm like, oh my fucking God, I am here. I am powerful. I am amazing. Congratulations, Brittany. Congratulations for doing this. And it's just a really big, exciting day for me. It's like better than my birthday. And I'm a Leo, so that says a lot. But I do want to acknowledge how heavy this topic is. So please, while listening, please take care of yourself. And if you need to take a break, take a break. And, I'm just excited to share this. So I figured I would start with a little bit of not too much, but a little bit of backwards. So 20 years ago, I had just moved back from Italy. And I've talked about that a little bit. I had just moved back from Italy. Mentally, I was in bed 23 hours a day. I couldn't shake it. That was when I finally decided to get on medication and things like that. Just desperate, the desperation that I had to have my life back and really realizing that I can't keep going like this. I'm not going to make it. I need so much help. But what does that even look like in this time, right? Just very mentally damaged in that moment, just not well. Depression is a monster. It really, really is. Emotionally, I really hopeless, really helpless, really fearful, trying so hard to save this marriage that I didn't know if I could save, really realizing and feeling like I was a failure as a wife, as a mother, as a friend, as a daughter, just really, really in a really tough time for me. And those feelings were just compiling and just felt like they were getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I wanted to be okay. And on the outside, it seemed like I should be okay, but I really felt like this lion in a cage, that it just looks like you have everything you need to live and thrive and survive, but it's not even touching what you actually need. I felt like I needed so much more, and that I was just trapped in a cage, pacing back and forth and back and forth. And it was brutal. It was really, really, really rough for me. And naturally that made it really rough for my family, for my children, for their father. And so that's unfortunate, right? And there was a lot of just self-injurious stuff going on. And it was a tough time, naturally, if it ended up where it did. So when I look at some of the other things that were going on, right? We had moved and there was this new life, and it was all of the things that I've previously talked about. I'm really trying hard to focus on saving this marriage, and it's just not working. And that is so hard. That was so hard. And then, the family component of that, they were not helpful. The boy's dad was reaching out to my rattlesnake being like, well, she needs help. And she's just like, she's just crying out for attention. She just wants attention, and just blowing it all off left and right. So there wasn't support really, or maybe nobody knew how to. Who's to say? I don't want to throw stones. But that's why, part of that is why I work so hard to celebrate this time, because God only knows that I've had plenty of challenging moments in 20 years. And I can look at those year after year and I'm like, damn, I know what I would have done 20 years ago if this happened. And now I'm like, it's just a bad day. Maybe I'll just sloth around on the couch, right? Like maybe I'll just kick into sloth mode and be a burrito on the couch and I will come back from this versus being like, nope, the end is the only way. So I really like to celebrate my accomplishments. We talked about that in the last episode. I like to celebrate my accomplishments. I like to remind myself like how far I've come, what I've learned, how I've handled things differently. And that makes me excited. That makes me excited to be able to review and rewind over like this character arc that there is for me. Like life is just very interesting and definitely doesn't stop throwing things at you. But when you learn some tools and you learn to be proud of yourself, there's a big mental shift. And that's exciting for me. So that's kind of where I was mentally, emotionally 20 years ago. I was at home one day and the boy's dad had called. He was calling to let me know that like the brakes had fallen off of the car. Like he was driving and the brakes, he came to a stop and they just sort of like clunk, 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 fell off the car. Like they were bad. And I had made some like nasty comment about like, why hadn't you got these fixed prior? Like, are you like, why, how did this even happen? That's weird to me. He tells me, I don't want to do this anymore, Brittany. Like, I want a divorce. And I'm like, the fuck? Over some brakes? Like, just really, this blindsides me. Sends me into this tailspin. I really felt caught off guard because we were going to like marriage counseling and all of this. And I just spiral absolutely out. And he's calling my dad, who is in another state at that time. And he's like, she needs help, a overdose. But like I'm so like amped up. And so I take a ton of pills, throw a bunch of shit in the car and take off and drive. And in my brain, I'm like, this is going to hit eventually. This is going to hit and maybe I'll just crash. And that would be okay too. So if it's not going to be the pills, it's going to be a car accident. And I was prepared for that. That was okay with me. And I take off driving. My dad has given me directions to drive to the state that he is in. And I'm like, what? Nobody's listening to the fact that I have overdosed, that I've taken copious amounts of pills at this point, but you want me to get in the car and drive, come to you in another state, whatever. I'll get there if I get there, and I won't if I won't. And so I don't know how far away I am, to be honest, but at some point I do in fact drive off of the road, and this terrifies me a little bit. I get really scared. And I think in that moment, there was this moment of like, oh, I drove off the road, but nothing really happened. And this could have been, I don't really know. So I do call my dad at that point and I'm like, look, Dad, I can't keep driving. I'm getting really tired. I'm getting really groggy. I fell asleep at the wheel. And I'm sure that it's not because I was tired, because I overdosed. My dad says, oh, okay. I tell him where I am. He sets up for me to stop at the next town up a couple miles, get a hotel room. And in my brain, I'm like, sweet, I can just go to this hotel room. I can just go to sleep and I won't wake up again. And that is going to be okay with me. But at least my dad knows where I am and he'll be able to handle everything from there. And this was going to be an okay thing for me. I go, I check in, I sleep for so many hours, and then I wake up the next day after checkout was already supposed to happen, and I'm still awake. I'm still here. And there was a good cry about that, but I guess I don't have any other choice at this point but to go to finish the rest of the drive to my dad. So I finish the rest of the drive. I get to my dad. That is when my dad checks me into the hospital, and I was there for a month. And so that was an interesting time. It was a challenging time. I think it was a great time. There was a lot of lessons learned. I learned a lot about medication there. I think I briefed on that in like the therapy episode, but I learned a lot about the medications that I was on and what I should have been like versus what I should have been on, and like what they're actually doing versus a doctor just like prescribing me something, me not really understanding what it's for or what it's supposed to be doing. So I learned a lot there. I was there. I tried to keep myself there for as long as I possibly could because I did not want to go into the real world and face my life. Because while I was there, the boy's dad moved in his girlfriend and had told my kids that I abandoned them. So like I had zero desire to go back out into the real world and deal with this. This sounded terrifying. It should be said that while I was in the hospital, my dad was there often, and I felt like we were really able to connect over some things from whenever he had been in rehab and some of the similarities. And I just remember him sitting there in a family session and asking the doctor, was like, her mom says that she's just doing this for attention. She's just being dramatic. Like, is that true? And the doctor looking at my dad and being like, no, sir, absolutely not. And giving my dad this education of what was going on, what was depression, what was, all of these other things that were going on, what was the self-injurious behavior, what was the suicide attempts. That was really helpful. And my dad really was a champ and really supportive in that moment. So whenever I get out of the hospital, my dad looks at me and he's like, what are you going to do? Where are you going to go? Because I couldn't stay with him. He was just technically like working out of town. He wasn't at home or anything like that. He was just out of town. So it's not like I could even stay with him. My kids were in one place. I didn't know. And my dad's like, well, what do you think you want to do? And I was like, well, if I go back home, like no good is going to come of that. No good is going to come of the moment that I drive this truck through the front window. No good is going to come of that. And if I go to Florida where my rattlesnake and brothers were, no good is going to come of that. That's not going to help my mental health. And my other option is to go to Virginia. My best friend lived there. And so my dad's like, well, again, south takes you this way, north takes you this way, make a choice. He puts a tank of gas in my car, hands me $60, and he says, make a choice, Brittany. Naturally, I ended up in Virginia because we're not trying to drive cars through houses. I'm not trying to get myself in worse trouble. I'm already struggling right now. So that was the aftermath of this attempt. I ended up in Virginia, away from my kids, away from my family, but with my best friend. And she let me hang out for about a week on the couch, just so depressed that I couldn't move, crying a lot. And then she finally was like, maybe we could go get you a job, just to give you something to do. Maybe it would take your mind off things. So we do. And she takes me and I go get this job. I get hired on the spot to work at this brewery. And then my life in Virginia started, right? Like it certainly wasn't easy. I had to figure out the divorce and the kids and my mental health, which was not well. That's, new friends, no family, just a lot of challenges that were sitting right in my face. But I had this opportunity. I had multiple attempts and I just needed to figure some shit out. And I finally, being away from all of the bigger stressors, right? Like I'm at my best friend's house, away from like being a mom, away from being a wife, away from the family. Like I was able to kind of look at some things and look at myself a little bit and start going to therapy for me to figure out how I come into my next steps. And so I've talked already a lot about my therapeutic journey, so I'm not gonna go into that, but that was where that started. That was that immediate aftermath. And that's where I had to start building a foundation. I learned how to be a grown-up in Virginia. Like I might have grown up somewhere else doing a lot of other things, but living in Virginia, I learned how to be a grown-up. I learned how to be an adult. I learned how to be somebody different than who I thought I was and who I thought I had to be because of my childhood and my teenage years and the choices that I had made up to 23 years old. So I worked really hard. I worked really hard at that. And I did not speak freely about all of this. For a long time, I did not speak freely. I was like, oh man, it's just like, oh, it's been a year. What a shitty, and it's still been a shitty year. Oh, it's been 2 years and it's like cool. But eventually it started to come and I could talk about it a little bit more openly. And at that time, it was just with certain people naturally, right? That's still very private information and things that we don't feel like we should be able to talk about with people. People don't understand suicide. People don't understand self-injurious behavior. People don't understand mental health. And so it wasn't something that I could really talk about a lot. And so I just had to piece it together the best way that I could, the best way that I knew how. But I had good friends at that time and I found a new purpose, right? I found this purpose in being like, I want my kids back. And so that became that purpose. That became that drive. Like, okay, I couldn't save this marriage, but I'm a good mom. I've taken good care of these boys for all of this time, through all of these deployments, through all of this. Like, yes, slip, fall, stumble, battle severe, severe depression, but like, I didn't ask to be depressed. And all of those other times, the in-betweens, I was a fabulous mom. It was something I was really good at. I've talked about that. Like, nobody could tell me I was not a good mom. I was a good mom. I am a good mom. So really kind of leaning into that. And like, my kids became my purpose. And I hear people say things like, if you can't love yourself, you can't love anybody else. Well, I didn't know how to love myself, but I knew how to love my children. And so I'm going to fight so hard for my children, because I want my children back. I want my children to be with me. I want to see them grow up. I want to see them become awesome little humans. And like, I want them to know that their mom loves them so much after they've been told that they were abandoned by her. Like, that's absolutely asinine. So, I went from being this like very confused, very hurt adult child, right? Like this, I think the little Brittany in me was still very much running my adult life at 23 years old, to really learning to lean into myself, to lean into my strengths, to lean into what made me me, to use some of that like stubborn tenacity that I had and a lot of that grit that I carry, to use that for something positive and getting my children back. So that purpose really helped me rebuild and find a new path forward. I obviously had some great friends in there that really helped push me forward, gave me opportunities, gave me some grace, gave me some understanding and a lot of support. And for that, I will be eternally grateful for some of those people that really stepped in and helped out, and oftentimes carried the weight when I couldn't do it. At about the 10-year mark, I had a really good friend that I was in college with. And she was very cool. She was very awesome. And I feel like she really kind of understood me, right? She was able to see some of the things and really understood that without me having to explain a lot of extra, which was new for me. I felt like I had been having to explain myself and explain my situation and experiences, and maybe people understood it and maybe they didn't, but she understood it. And so I think that entered like this new era of being able to talk more freely about this and feel comfortable and safe talking about it. But I was talking to her as my 10-year anniversary was approaching. And I was like, why don't they have, chips for this? Like AA. If you're 10 years sober, it's a big deal. The world gives you a chip. They celebrate you. If you're 10 years sober from, drugs or alcohol, I was like, I want a chip. I think that they should give us acknowledgement. They should have different types of support groups and things like that to acknowledge how hard it is when your coping skill is to harm yourself. You should get a chip for that, for not doing it. The same way if your coping skill is drugs and you don't do it, you get a chip for that. And I was like, but I spent 8 years trying to end my life. I have been 10 years clean of that. I think I should get a chip. And I really believe this. She made me a chip for my 10-year anniversary. And it is one of my most prized possessions. But she did make me a chip. And that was very exciting to me. That meant a lot to me. But it was also in that moment where I was like, I'm going to start celebrating this. Like, there was a mind shift in that. I didn't need to hide this. I don't need to be ashamed of my past. And I think that's where a lot of that is. Like, you feel shame for not being strong enough. You feel shame for, I don't know, trying to take what society says is the easy way out. You feel shame. You feel disappointment in yourself. Like, there's a lot of big feelings that come surrounding why you would want to end your life, and a lot of feelings that come after you were not successful doing it. So being able to talk about this is hard. But I got to this point at about that 10-year mark where I was like, oh, hell no. Like, I know who I was then, and I would never have been able to handle what I'm dealing with now. I was still dealing with crazy, crazy things even at that point, and was like, there's no way I would have been dealing with this. I would have been in this, like, I'm so strong. I've gotten so much better. And that was such an exciting moment. And that was very much this milestone milestone where the tables turned a little bit. And I was like, let's celebrate this. Let's shift this mindset from it being a negative memory. Let's take the shame out of it and let's celebrate yourself, celebrate your life, celebrate your progress, celebrate all of the lessons that you've learned. And that's not always easy. People don't necessarily always want to do that. And so if you don't want to do that, obviously that's your prerogative, but this is what has really made me be able to come into myself and be so fucking proud of all of the work that I've done and who I am as a person. I think that it's important to be able to talk about suicide as a society. I've spent a lot of time, especially in the very beginning of my career, I spent a lot of time advocating, doing suicide awareness and prevention. I spent a lot of time working for the Trevor Project, which is specifically geared towards our LGBT community. And I really had a strong passion for being able to be like, yes, I see you. I understand that this is hard and let's see what we can do together. And that was a passion of mine for a very, very, very long time. I wanted to be able to advocate for others the same way that maybe I felt I needed advocating for, or maybe some of the ways that I felt like I was advocated for. So I think it's important, but I wanted to give some real talking points to acknowledge what an issue suicide is in our society. So I pulled the 2023 stats. Those are the most recent ones that are out right now. The 2023 stats for suicide. It continues to be a leading cause of death. In 2023 alone, 49,000 people died from suicide, making that one every 11 minutes. This podcast in that time would have already taken 3 lives. There are 12.8 million people that consider suicide a year. 12.8 million people consider this every single year, ending their life. 3.7 make a plan, and 1.5 million people attempt suicide every single year. Males make up 80% of that statistic. That is increasingly high. That includes my little brother. And I think there's a lot of misconception that suicide, people are only a certain age when they contemplate suicide, and you would be so mistaken, because our top 2 demographics that are impacted by suicide are elderly people, the population above the age of 75, and then another statistic comes from the population above 85 years old. So it's not just something that plagues younger people with poor coping skills. This is something that plagues everybody. The 3rd highest suicide completion statistic comes out of our 35 to 44-year-olds, our moms, well, not my mom anymore. I guess me, my age. But that's, people that you're looking at that they're your parents. They're your people that are thriving in business. They're really doing the thing and seem to have it all together. And they are taking their lives at a increasingly high rate. So suicide is nobody's immune to that. It touches everybody. And because of that, that is why people need to be more aware of this, right? People are like, oh, I don't have kids. I don't have to worry about it. Okay. Do you have a parent? Do you have a grandparent? You have to worry about this. This is something that plagues our society. And these numbers are getting higher again. They dipped briefly and now they are back up again. So we need to be mindful. We need to know, because you have friends and you have family, you have real people that you love and that love you, and everybody struggles. So I think I wanted to talk a little bit about a couple myths that are out there, and there's plenty of myths. I don't have the time to go through all of them, but there are plenty of myths. And I think the leading myth out there is that talking about suicide increases suicide. And that's not true at all. People need to talk about it. People need to be able to express that this is where they are and this is what they're feeling, and not feel like they can't talk about this. It is okay to ask somebody if they're thinking about taking their own life and then moving forward with that. To have somebody answer you to your face on the spot. It's okay okay. It is okay. You don't have to be, a therapist. You don't have to do this. You just have to love somebody. You just have to know. And it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to listen to somebody talk about it. Another myth that this is attention seeking. This is not attention seeking behavior. If you cannot wrap your brain around the fact that it's not attention seeking behavior, let me lean back into it that it is. It is attention seeking in the highest caliber, saying, yes, I need help. Please help me. I am begging you. I am screaming for help. Right? So like, if you cannot be like, no, it's not attention seeking. Okay. First of all, it's not. But if you really need to lean back into that, then be like, yes, it is somebody being like, I need somebody to pay attention. I am having a very hard time with life. It's not working for me. Please help me. Please, please, please help me. Don't brush this under the rug. Don't brush what I'm telling you under the rug. I know I talked a lot to people about where I was, and people were like, well, yeah, but like your delivery, you gave it in such a way that I was like, I didn't know it was that serious. Like, I know you were saying that you were miserable and unhappy and didn't love your life, but you weren't giving it in a way that landed on me that was super serious. And it's like, how did you want me to do that? Do you want to come over while I'm crying in my bed all day? Or when I can't wake up? Like, I don't understand. When you're asking me where I've been for the past week and I'm like, well, I haven't showered. I've been in bed for the past week. And you're like, oh, what? So it's not, people are only people. We only understand what we know how to understand, and that's okay. But it is not attention seeking. Your friends need you, your family needs you, your people need you. People think that suicide can't be prevented, and that's false. It 100% can. It is one of the most preventable diseases ever. Like, suicide is brought on by depression. It's brought on by several mental illnesses, actually. Depression, anxiety, bipolar, schizophrenia. There's a handful that correlate to a suicide attempt. And a lot of those can be prevented, right? Suicide is not the inevitable. Suicide can be prevented. It takes a village. It takes a community. That's why I always say people need people. We can't always do it all alone. Common misconception that it's selfish or that it's weak. And I don't know that my podcast is going to make you think any differently than that, but it is not selfish. It's not weak. It's really being in so much pain that you cannot understand how you live in that excruciating pain any longer, right? Like, we're not upset when our people are, in excruciating pain from other illnesses, ailments, diseases, cancer, etc. We understand, and we say things like, oh, at least they're out of their misery now. At least they don't have to suffer in pain anymore. That's depression. That's mental health. And so it's not selfish and it's not weak. It's just genuinely not knowing how you're able to get through life anymore because it hurts so bad and you don't know how to fix it. Therapy and medications do not work. Again, false. They do work. You have to put in the effort. You have to put in the work. You can't fix me, right? Only I can work on me. Only I can fix me. Only I can put in the efforts to make me better. You can hold my hand. You can look at me. You might be even be able to take me to an appointment or two, but you can't really fix me. But therapy, me being able to go work through some of my stuff, that can. Medication, incredibly helpful. I do recall the moment that they told me, Brittany, you will be on medication for the rest of your life. And I was like, fuck you. No, I will not do that. I will not do that. And they were like, yes, you will, because of all of these other reasons. And I was like, I refuse to do that. And I haven't taken medication in probably 19 years because I said no. Let me find another way. Let me find another way to stabilize myself, to regulate myself, to, process life. I don't want that. But there are moments in time where you really need a medication to help level you out just a little bit so that you can utilize some of the coping skills that you learn, so that you can get past some of those immediate feelings, right? That spike in anxiety or that spike of anger or that rush or whatever that looks like. You really need to be able to, be a little regulated, and that's okay. It's okay. Medication's not going to fix you all by itself, but medication and therapy is going to go a long, long, long way to help reprogram where you are. So like I said, there's a lot of myths out there. I could make a whole episode on myths alone, but it's not about that. It's that Just because you don't know doesn't mean you can't learn. So please do. Please do. Again, for your people, for your families, for your grandparents, or, I don't know, your best friend's kid, right? It's all over the place right now. There's various different ways that you can help. Like I said, you can talk about it. Do talk about it. Do talk about it. You can go with people to their appointments. You can encourage them. There's a lot of fear in going to therapy or going to the doctor. And so having somebody support you in that, that's okay. That goes a long way as well. You can give responsibilities to people. If people are suicidal in that moment, there's a lot of things that you can do. Hey, can you help me water my plants while I'm going out of town? Can you help me take my cat to the vet because I, will be at work? It's giving a purpose and it's giving a short timeline. There's being able to make a plan. I know my son at one point told me that the most helpful thing for him, and my brother told me this too, but the most helpful thing for him was a doctor being like, you're going to be okay and I'll see you tomorrow, right? Right. And them having to be like, yeah, you'll see me tomorrow. Not wanting to go back on your word. And I know I kept my brother around a long time for things like that, being like, hey, we have plans on Saturday. Don't forget. Hey, I'll see you after work. Don't forget. Did you need me to pick you up from work, give you a ride? Don't forget. People do not want to let one another down and need to feel like there's a purpose. Obviously, there's a spiritual aspect in that, whether that is religion or just an overall spirituality, whatever that looks like. But, it can be very helpful helping shift somebody to a different, to think of things differently. Go to church. I don't go to a sound bath. They're nice. Whatever helps, whether it's just meditation or just positive affirmations or anything like that. It could be books. It could be podcasts. It could be, like I said, meditation. It could be a lot of things. So being able to present those things to our people can go a long way. People want to hold on to something. People want to find faith again. People want to find hope again. A big part of what leads to suicide attempts is lack of hope. And we all need hope, and we need to be able to find that again and again and again. And that can be tricky. So helping find that hope is great. I put out on the socials, I posed a question and I said, what's gotten you through hard times? And so I wanted to share some of that because, again, this is a community, and what worked for me it might not work for you, but I wanted everybody to know what's worked for each other. So I thought I would share some of that too. I always appreciate the write-ins. I always appreciate the community and the support that we can give to one another. So I'll just read through some of them. Music, therapy, gaming, alcohol, affirmations, talking to friends, sex, me, myself, and I. Hello. Yes, everybody needs a hero. Sometimes we are our own. Determined. My determination and stubbornness not to be defined by only my hard days. Again, yes, amazing. Alcohol and pure willpower, reassuring myself that I'm very resilient. Self-care, family, purpose, my cats, good wine, sunny days, the beach, a hike. That's again, such a range, such a spectrum. You don't have to go. I'm going to always say go to therapy. Everybody should go to therapy. But if it's just not your jam, there's other things and there's other ways, right? You're going on a hike, invite your friend to go on a hike. Hey, we're going to go on a hike today. Okay, come on. I know there was a moment in time where I had a friend, she was really struggling, and I was like, I'm going to come make sure you took a shower today. That's all I'm going to do. I'm going to come make sure that you took a shower and you got out of bed. And I did that a couple different times to this matters. Get out of bed. I don't care if you do jack shit, but get out of bed. Take a shower, wash your ass. So sometimes we can use small things along the way, small tools, small tips, small tricks. We can do that and it goes a really long way, right? Even baby steps are steps. They make great progress. There are a lot of tangible tools out there that we can utilize. There is the suicide hotline, which has switched over to 988. So everybody can remember it. 988 is our suicide hotline. It is our mental health crisis hotline. Just dial it. Just dial it. And if you have a loved one that is really struggling and won't call yourself, you can call them too. How do I help my friend? What resources can you help me get? So you can do that as a supporter. You can do that. There are other lines, hotlines, call-in lines that are more specific, such as the Trevor Project for all of our LGBTQA people, those friends. And that is a very cool one where you can write in, you can call in, you can text in. And so you don't even necessarily need to talk, and you could just like text. And so there's a lot of different therapies and things like that out there, but that's an actual crisis line that can really help sometimes, just calling in and they'll get back to you and they'll text. Local agencies, there's a lot in specific cities and states. And if you live in a big college area, like they usually have a lot for things like that. There are other trauma specific ones, such as RAIN for our for the sexual abuse. So, if this is where we are for a much more like niched specific thing, there's domestic violence hotlines, there's sex abuse hotlines, there's trafficking hotlines, right? So if you want something that's not so broad, you can niche it down a little bit. And please do, right? Please reach out. It's not weak to ask for help. It's the strongest thing you'll ever do. It's that being said, please remember, it's not easy to ask for help. So sometimes, again, it takes a village, it takes a community to be able to do that. I think something that I always heard that maybe I feel was a little bit misrepresentation, but that it gets better. It does get better. That is safe to be said. It does get better. But when you're in that place, you don't necessarily know what better looks like. Better is just like having my life not be in shambles like this anymore. So I prefer the saying of it gets different. It gets different because you're still going to have shit that comes along the way. You're still going to have adult responsibilities. You're still going to have bills. You're still going to have people you don't like. You're still going to have trauma from childhood. You're still going to have relationship woes, right? Whatever it is that brought you to this point, like that's life. That's still going to happen. So I prefer like it gets different. And there is still so much hope in that. I've talked a lot about the last conversation that I had with my brother, where my brother was asking like, how is there hope? Is there hope? And I'm like, yeah, of course there is. It takes work. It takes a lot of dedication to yourself. It takes a lot of like falling down, scraping your knees and pulling yourself back up again. But yes, there's hope, and it gets different. Like it doesn't always have to feel this way. And I strongly, strongly, strongly believe that. And I strongly, strongly, strongly appreciate my brother making sure that I was reminded of that so that I was able to take that setback and keep moving forward again as well. It should be said, I struggled the first couple years to celebrate my anniversary after my brother passed, because I'm like, how is this the case? How am I okay? And he's not. And I can't change any of that, but I can still be really proud of myself. That doesn't have to take away, my beliefs that it gets different, my beliefs that I can do it, my beliefs in hope and success, my beliefs in celebrating myself, my beliefs in the support system. And so I just really encourage you to lean into your people and to find things that bring you joy and talk about it if it needs to be talked about. The fact that you are still here means that your story isn't over and that you are not broken. You're becoming. And how exciting is that? I love that for me, for you, for all of us. So with that, don't forget to like and subscribe to the Dysfunctionally Yours podcast, wherever you're listening to. New episodes come out every Monday, and the video is also out on YouTube every Monday, if that is what you prefer. Please like and subscribe, engage on the socials to Dysfunctionally Yours podcast on both Instagram and TikTok. You can also find that Google form. We are building a community. So write in, what are your questions? What are your concerns? What are your ideas, suggestions? What do you want to hear about? All of this. This is your podcast as much as it is mine. Until next week, don't be afraid to be great. Toodles, poodles. Bye.